Okay, just a couple of things before we get started. We are going to start off getting all my settings here ready to go. So good morning, welcome to Friday. Yay, it's Friday. Like in the general session this morning, TGIF. I know we're all excited for this weekend. It's cooling off. It's beautiful outside today. So hopefully when the forum ends this afternoon, you're able to get outside a little bit. But I just want to start off with some housekeeping things before we get started with our presenter, Michael Rose from Morton College. First, I just wanted to tell you guys that my name is Kirsten Bayer with the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support at Illinois State University, and I'm joined with my colleague, Martha Smith, and we're going to be your moderator and technical support for this session. So if you do experience any technical issues, please feel free to reach out to us via the chat, or if you have any questions regarding this session or the forum in general, you can reach out to myself or Martha via the chat, and we will answer your question to the best of our ability and help you troubleshoot any tech issues. I also wanted to let you all know that you do have the ability to unmute yourselves, but we ask that you refrain from doing this until the end of the session. If you have questions as the session proceeds, you can post those in the chat, and then we will address the chat questions, and then you can also unmute yourselves and ask questions live towards the end of the session. So pretty standard for what we've been doing the whole entire forum the last couple days. And then I also wanted to note that if you are wanting a certificate of PD, everyone from the conference is going to be getting those within 2 weeks. But just please make sure that your name on the participant list is your first and last name. So that way, for attendance purposes, we can make sure we have the correct people. So make sure your first and last name is correct on the participant list. And I believe that's all I have. So I'm going to hand it off to Michael, and he'll get us started with the presentation today.
Okay. Thank you, Kirsten. So my name is Michael Rose. I'm the Associate Dean for Strategic Initiatives for Adult and Career and Technical Education here at Morton College, which I know that title is kind of a mouthful, and I'm going to go through a little bit about what that title means. But I think kind of the first thing to explain here is the sort of state of adult education here at Morton College. We, about 2 years ago now, I believe, 2.5 years ago, combined adult ed and CTE into one department. So we are now the Adult Career and Technical Education Department here at the college. And, you know, this was kind of done in order to encourage more collaboration between adult ed and CTE in order to, you know, facilitate students transition from adult ed into those CTE classes and certificates. And it's really, you know, done just that and kind of brought us closer together to the CTE folks. I started in adult education, so my background is in ESL, and I have a long tutoring background working with students of all different ages across different subject matters. But this position really kind of exists in that space between the adult and the career and technical ed program. So I kind of see it as my job to help facilitate the transition of those students and, you know, to develop new programs and keep, you know, pushing innovation forward in that area. So today we're going to go through a couple, what we called our next step transition programs. And that's really just a broad umbrella of all the transition programs that we have. So this Credit Connect program, which I'm going to spend a lot of time on today, as well as our ICAPS programs and our Bridge programs. And really, it was just a way for us to develop a information session that kind of encompassed all of those and help students see, you know, the various transition programs that we have as really kind of one connected linear step that they're going to take from adult ed into the college once they're ready. So quickly, this is the agenda, and I'm going to kind of spend more time on the Credit Connect stuff. So the development strategy of it, some of the recruitment that we do, how it kind of integrates with ICAPS and stuff like that, and then some of the data. And I do want to spend some time discussing and encouraging your feedback and answering any questions that you may have. As Kirsten said, please feel free to put any questions that you may have in the chat as we're going along, and I'll try to answer those as I see them. And then at the end, we can, unmute and have a discussion. So our next step transition programs. This all starts with in-class career exploration, which I know we're all doing. And then kind of the next step of that is our healthcare bridge course. We're trying to develop other bridge courses at the moment, but right now the healthcare bridge course is kind of the main bridge course that we have. There is a pre-bridge element to it for ABE and ASE students. So there's an ABE section of the healthcare bridge, and then an ASE section of the healthcare bridge. We run in 8-week terms. So generally the ABE section is in the first 8 weeks. The ASE section is in the second 8 weeks. We did recently launch and develop a ESL section of the healthcare bridge, which is separate from and kind of contains different content from the ABE ASE version. That was developed with the support of the nursing department here, and specifically the nursing retention specialist, who has a strong ESL background. So we're excited to see how that develops, and that's really geared, kind of towards the nursing track. So from the healthcare bridge into the CNA into nursing. And then we have Credit Connect and ICAPS. Before I get into Credit Connect, the ICAPS that we have currently, we have an automotive ICAPS, which is a MLR certificate. That's the maintenance and light repair certificate. And then the early childhood aid certificate. All right, so Credit Connect. Credit Connect came about under the FY18 Innovative Bridge and Transitions Grant. It was developed by myself, the dean at the time, along with another transition coach that I was working with at the time. And the idea was, a lot of our students don't have in adult ed a kind of clear picture of what the next year or year and a half or 2 years of their academic career is going to look like. They, struggle to decide on which track they want to go into. And the thing that we consistently heard from students is, I want to go to college. I want to get a degree or a certificate. I'm just not sure which area I want to go into yet. And so we developed this as the idea was, in high school, students take dual enrollment or dual credit courses. And I'm going to use that a little bit interchangeably here, though I know it's not quite correct. But students generally have that option in high school. And we wanted to provide something similar to adult ed students, something that would get them kind of a taste of what the college experience was like, and provide them with credit for when they eventually did go to college, and give them a kind of a foot in the door to the other side of the college. And so really important was how this program interacts with the rest of the college. It was developed in a very collaborative process. So the first place we sat down with was actually academic advising to kind of get a sense of what this might look like if this was possible. And they helped us identify courses that do not need a placement exam for the college. So we use the AccuPlacer here at Morton. And so it was really important for us to try to find courses where our students could avoid the AccuPlacer. The next step was the CT department chairs. And at the time that we developed this, they were a separate department. And, I think the thing that I've heard often in these conferences at the forum and then at IASA and other adult ed conferences is that it can often be difficult to get CTE buy-in for these programs. And I have to be honest, that was not our experience, which was great to see. So I sat down with each department chair in the CTE department and kind of went through what the sequencing of courses look like for them, when each course is offered for the basic certificate in their area. And then we talked about kind of exactly what is being taught in the introductory level classes in their department, and identified a class in their area that they thought adult ed students would really, thrive in, succeed in, and would be a great transition into that level of education. So while most of the classes that are available to students through Credit Connect are 101 or introductory level classes, not all of them are. Many of the CTE chairs identified another class that they thought would be a 100 level class that didn't have any prereqs that they thought would be a kind of smoother transition. And I'll talk a little bit about those when I get to kind of the application and the classes available. And then from there, financial aid, AID, not aid, but financial aid was also kind of important in this, in that we had to figure out how we were going to pay for it going forward. So we, as many of you probably know, ability to benefit was initially identified as a way that we might be able to pay for this. Of course, that was going to require students to either take a placement test or, an approved ability to benefit test, or already have that 6 credit threshold, which, most of our students did not have. So we were able to kind of work out an arrangement with the college to set aside some institutional funds for these students, which ultimately in the first year we were able to use these IBT funds in order to fund it. And you'll see when I get to the numbers, our number of students going through the program was much bigger in that first year because we had more funds available. It became much more selective in the subsequent years because the pool of funds we had was smaller. The second or the final thing that we had to do was get together with admissions. And this was a really important part. The admissions process for adult ed is quite different than the admissions process for the rest of the college. More often than not, our students just kind of show up at the adult ed office and say, I want to take ESL classes or high school equivalency classes. In back pre-pandemic times, we'd give them a little intake form, they'd fill it out, come back for placement testing, and they'd be all set. Admissions at the college, kind of requires students to do a little bit more, meet with an academic advisor, sort out exactly, what their plan is going forward. So we wanted to simplify that a little bit. So the process that we worked out, students actually register through our department, but we kind of walk them through the process on the credit side. So a student will go through, and I'll talk about the recruitment strategy in a second, but they'll go through the kind of recruitment steps. Once they've been selected, we will walk them down to admissions, register with them, and then walk them through what our at Morton is called the Panther portal, but is basically our online portal, how to use that and how to get on Blackboard and all those things. Recruitment. So most important with Credit Connect is making sure that targeted recruitment is happening. So we want to open this up to as many students as possible, but we found out quickly in the first year that just accepting students based on a TABE score or a CASA score isn't quite good enough. We need to be a little bit more scrupulous in how we go forward with this. So we would actually, when students come into the program, they fill out a career interest form that looks like this. They go through and put, any GED tests that they may have passed, what area of interest their career interest lies in. We ask them about their schedule. So, they prefer evening or morning classes to kind of sort that out. And then ask them, if they already are employed and they have a job that they really like, they want to further themselves in that industry, we ask them to let us know that. We then use this form to, compare and add to it the TABE scores, the CASA scores, and then a big part of this is teacher recommendation, making sure that students are attending class. We look at their class attendance, and they need to have pretty much perfect attendance, if not very close to that. In order to recruit for it, we also do virtual, now virtual, previously in person, but class visits. Those class visits are targeted to certain levels. So for Credit Connect, we target our highest level of GED classes, which for us, those ASE classes. And then for ESL, we would target level 5 and 6. So our transition specialists will go into those classes, visit, talk about the program, gauge student interest, have students sign up, and then give them the application link. One other thing that we do and that we've tried to require students to attend is information sessions that are actually conducted by the CTE faculty, where CTE faculty can provide information about their programs. One kind of, I guess, tip that I found, and something that I think is really important, is making sure that you kind of have a strong grasp on the information sessions, and that you're leading them, so that somebody from adult ed is leading them and the CTE faculty is providing some input about their classes. As I'm sure you know, our CTE faculty is generally really excited about their subject area, and can sometimes get a little bit too far into the weeds with their subject area and try to, go a little bit overboard in explaining it. And so we try to scale that back and just have them give a brief description, then answer any questions that they may have. The other, important part of this is keeping all of our staff involved. So, when a student runs into an adult ed staff member here and begins talking about their career, they're referred down to our transition specialist, or, given this career pathways form if they haven't already filled it out, or sent the link to the application. So it's important that you have, or we've found that it's important that we have buy-in from all our staff, and that everybody's able to talk about this a little bit and direct students in the right direction, because you never know when you're going to have that conversation with a student in which they reveal what it is they're interested in doing after their adult ed studies. And those information sessions, we also try to target our invitations to students. So depending on which CT faculty members are going to be there, we'll look at the forms, the data that we have, and target it to those students who selected those areas of interest. The other really important thing for us has been having a bilingual or multiple bilingual staff members who are able to help out with this. So Morton College is 86% Hispanic. We're a Hispanic serving institution. The vast majority of our students are bilingual, and it's important that our staff reflects that as well and is able to engage with students in both Spanish and English. So that's been key as well. And while we expect students to have a certain level of English when they're ready to jump over to the credit side of the college, because these classes are taught in English, it's important for us to start the process of recruitment and explaining the pathway to students very early on. And so that language barrier can sometimes be an issue, and it's important to have somebody that can help us overcome it. In terms of the pathway that we have here, this is not. Oh, there we go. This is our kind of adult ed pathway, and I'm sure it's somewhat similar to all of yours. For Credit Connect, we target NRS level 5 and 6, both in GED classes and in ESL classes. You can see the healthcare bridge is on here, as well as ICAPS. And this can kind of be a really useful tool in explaining to students how the program works. I'm sure you get this question, but the first question any GED student seems to ask is, how long is it going to take me to get my GED? And based on their placement, we can kind of go through and tell them, well, this is the sequence of courses. It may take you multiple terms at a certain course or a certain level in order to pass to the next one. And so while we can't tell you exactly how long this is going to take you, we can provide you with this pathway, as well as let you know when it is you can start to make that next step into the college. This is that career pathway information again, that sheet that we use. All right, so Credit Connect, in talking about eligibility for students, again, NRS levels 5 and 6 is what we're looking for. We want them to have a recommendation from their teacher. So we want the teacher to have had a conversation with them, have an idea of the interest that they have, and then really, provide some input to the transition coach or transition specialist as to whether the student would be a good candidate for it. Once we get that, they then need to go through an interview process. So they actually sit down with either myself, the transition specialist, both of us, and the interview is, more a conversation. We want them to tell us, what it is they're interested in, why they're interested in it, where they're going to, where they want their pathway to take them and where they want to end up, but also kind of what's, going on in their life. Because it's really important that we know what support we need to provide the student as they're jumping over to the credit side of the college. Whether that's the financial support that they're going to need, whether that is the mental health support that they might need. Housing has been an issue for some of our students. Just transportation issues can be an issue for some of our students. So it's been really important to have those kind of in-depth conversations, and we try to make those interviews or discussions at least 20 or 30 minutes with a student, and really, get into what exactly it is they're looking to do after their GED or ESL classes. So this program, the student is taking a college credit course concurrently with their adult education courses. They need to be enrolled in an adult ed course. And the college level course, and I'm going to pull up a list of them here in a second, but the college level course that they take, unlike ICAPS, they do not have a adult ed instructor in there with them. The CTE instructor is aware of who the adult ed students are, but we encourage the CTE instructors, not to necessarily cater to that specific student in the class, but rather to keep us informed, to keep the student informed outside of class of their progress, how they're doing, so that we can constantly check in with them. So they're required to have bi-weekly check-ins with the transition coach, and sit down, have a discussion, go over what it is they're doing in class, what areas they might be having difficulty in, where they need more support, and then what's happening outside of class. Is childcare becoming an issue? Are they having a tough time making it to to the class time that they selected? Those sorts of things. In addition to those bi-weekly check-ins with the transition specialist, they're also required to meet with our adult ed tutors. So we have 2 adult education tutors that have been funded kind of back and forth between institutional funds and the IBT grant. that we've received. So, we did receive an IBT grant this year. They're being funded from that right now, but then in the past have been funded through institutional dollars. And those two tutors, one is a kind of math-centric student tutor, and then the other is the it supports our ESL and more of a language arts focused student. There's a couple things in the chat. Let me just get to those before I move on. So can we get a copy of this flowchart? Certainly, yes, I'd be happy to send that out. It sounds like students could be the only adult ed student or a few mixed into a credit course with traditional students. Is that correct, as opposed to a class of adult ed? Yes, that is correct. So more often than not, they're the only, or one or two, or one of a couple adult ed students in the class. And so that's where that kind of pre-preparation really comes into play, and making sure that students are very aware of the support that they have outside of the class, the expectations that are going to happen within the class, and I'll get into that in a second as well. But yes, they are generally going to be the only, maybe the only adult ed student mixed in there with a traditional student. However, I think one of the things that we found is, for a lot of these certificate programs, automotive, HVAC, students aren't necessarily required to have, and this is how we enroll them, in the program in the first place, aren't necessarily required to have a high school diploma. So I think one of the things that we should be aware of is that while they're the only, adult ed student that we have in our program that's in the class, they may not be the only adult ed student in that class, or the only student in a situation where they don't have a high school equivalency certificate, or their English skills aren't quite at the college level that they would need to be. And so it's been really important, I think, to partner with CTE and help identify those students, and then have them referred back to adult ed as well. And yes, I'm happy to share the career pathway as well. That form. Is the CTE instructor section handpicked, or do you? It is handpicked. So we choose the section and offer a very limited choice, and I'll get into that in a second as well. Yes, the GED student would be taking a GED class and a credit-bearing course at the same time. So in that way, it's very similar to ICAPS. Okay, so yes, concurrent enrollment in adult courses, mandatory tutoring, they do need to meet with the tutor. And the last thing that I'll mention is I think going forward, may start requiring certain students to enroll in a support course, which would be an ICAPS support course. And I'm going to talk about our approach to the ICAPS support course in a moment. But we have found that some students could really use some of that extra support outside of their adult ed class and credit bearing course. So we're in the process of exploring that option as well. I want to stop sharing for a second and pull up the application that students go through. So this is our Credit Connect application for students, and the information is fairly, simple. They go through, they fill out this, they check off again whether or not they passed a GED test. Having passed a GED test is not a requirement for GED students. They don't have to have passed a GED test yet. And then they have this Credit Connect course list, and they can choose which courses they might be interested in. This changes depending on the semester. So this is our fall, from this fall. And students will check off what it is they're interested in. Then when they meet with us, what we'll do is pull up Morton College's schedule and really sit down and go through which specific sections we're going to allow them to take. Historically, they need to be they can't be an online class or if they are an online class now, which happened over the pandemic, it needs to be an online on a schedule course, which is one that meets on Zoom or on Blackboard, and not something that is more traditional online course where they're doing coursework on their own. So they would go through, pick out which class they're interested in, and then answer a couple questions. So describe your interest in the career pathway that you chose, talk about where you see yourself a year from now and how you plan to get there. And some of this is really just to get a sense of their writing ability for us to get a sense of their writing ability, but also to give them a chance to, to describe what it is they'd like to pursue. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. There's a couple more things. So, okay, so that was the next thing I was going to get to, is how they pay for the courses. We actually cover the tuition. Students do not pay for the courses. The biggest, the biggest barrier for students, I think, going into this has been typically tuition. And so we have taken that off the table for them. We've set aside some institutional dollars to pay for this. We have used IBT funds in the past to pay for this. We're looking into setting up a fund that, community members, alumni can donate to, that can be used to pay for this. We do not force them to pay for the tuition. IBT funds is the Innovative Bridge and Transition Grant. So it's grant funds that we've received. Books, okay. So when we first started this, we did pay for books for some students. And one of the things we found is that when students don't have any financial skin in the game, it becomes very easy for them to back out of the class. And that's what happened with a few students. We very early on had a couple students who, we bought the books, we paid for the tuition, and then received an email from them that, well, this isn't really working with my schedule, and I don't think I'm going to continue this course. And I think it's natural for an adult ed student to see it that way, right? Adult ed courses are very much like that. They're free for the most part. They don't need to pay for books for the most part. And if they do need to pay for something, it's very low cost. And so, it's easy for a student to drop out of an adult ed course. And since then, we've really tried to instill in students the fact that this is not an adult ed course. This is a college credit course. It's important that you treat it as such. And while we're paying for the tuition for this, it is not something that you should take lightly. And so since then, we've tried to enforce a rule that students are responsible for the books for the course. Now, as my transition specialist will say, I'm a bit of a softie. So we do kind of cave on that occasionally, and we'll provide the books for the student should they absolutely need it, and should it get to a point where they can't pay for it. But that is one thing that we do encourage students to buy, is the books, because we do want them to have a little bit of that, kind of skin in the game, and feel, responsible for it. There are other pathways for them to pay for books as well. There's an emergency fund that they can apply for at Morton, so they can get dollars through that as well. The ABT, I know that email just went out, and I think I saw Kathy put something in the chat about it. So that's really exciting, and should be a real boon for programs like this. The next thing, and I kind of want to, I'll speed up here a little bit because I do want to leave time for us to kind of open this up and chat. The next thing I wanted to talk about was just how this integrates to ICAPS, and I think I saw something in the chat about that. You did see on there automotive and early childhood education courses. So when a student selects those, we automatically move them over to the ICAPS realm. That's when they would have to take that support course. That's when they, become an ICAPS student. So we just put that on there to kind of encourage that option for them as well. And all of this, Credit Connect, our ICAPS classes are marketed together under this next step umbrella to kind of encourage students transition. And we've tried to make this give it a holistic feel that these aren't separate programs. They're all part of this next step that they're going to be taking. So the ICAPS courses that we have, the automotive, the early childhood, the maintenance and light repair certificate is Ford certified. Generally, we start that with a spring cohort. And then the early childhood aid certificate we generally will start that every semester. That is about 12 credits and feeds into further certificates. And we do really encourage those further certificates because that's where, the wage, the high paying wage earning part of this comes in. So then the support course, we've been exploring a shared support course, quite frankly, out of necessity. We don't have enough students in ICAPS programs generally in order to support two different support courses taught by two different teachers. It just becomes very expensive. So what we've done is created a support course that really focuses on providing career readiness training, and then the teacher can provide some individualized content area support or connect the student to a tutor that can provide some individualized content area support. I think we're also going to explore splitting this between, two adult ed instructors. So one adult ed instructor who is the ECE instructor or ECE ICAPS instructor for adult ed would take it for the first 8 weeks. The automotive instructor would take it for the second 8 weeks, and split up the course in that way. The other thing that we're looking into is with the new certification requirements or certificate requirement for adult ed is integrating work keys into this so that they come out with that career readiness certificate as well as the ICAPS certificate. Finally, this all kind of, do we fund all 16 or 12 credits? That's a great question. And it kind of gets to this point right here. So we will fund the first 2 classes definitely for ICAPS. And then there are situations in which we've funded the rest of the certificate for a student. However, what we're really hoping is that once a student completes those first 6 credits, they're also completing their high school equivalency at that same time. And once they've done that at Morton College, they have access to a GED scholarship. And this has been really, generous of the college and really allowed us to, transition more and more students and provide students with more and more opportunities. So the GED scholarship covers 60 credits of tuition, doesn't cover lab fees and things like that. It doesn't cover books, but it does take care of 60 credits of tuition split over 4 semesters, so 15 credits per semester, and includes both Spanish GED students, which is a newer program that we have, and English language GED students. So this is kind of where we're funneling students in our transition programs. So the idea is, you don't necessarily need to pay for any of these courses if you complete your GED. Typically, we award about I mean, everybody that graduates with their GED is eligible for this scholarship. The number of students who claim it every year is between 20 and 30 right now. In the past, it's been higher, but with COVID right now, it's between 20 and 30. So the scholarship is funded by the institution, mostly through the Morton College Foundation. It is incredible, Michelle. It's great. It's I'll be honest, it's made my job a lot easier. For Spanish GEDs, do you guys have a requirement to enroll them in an ESL class? Yes, we do. So there is a deferment period for Spanish GED students whose English language level is not at college ready level. We do allow them to defer the scholarship for 1 year to take ESL courses. So yes, that is available to them, but we also will CASAS test them to gauge their English level, and if they test out of CASAS, we'll give them Best Plus, and if they score pretty high on that, they generally then will take advantage of the scholarship. So this is kind of the end game for all of it, is getting students to this GED scholarship. The last thing, I do have some data here that I'll show you. So the Credit Connect program, this for FY19, 20, and 21. And you can see, in FY19, that's when we had that IBT grant, and our funds were, it seemed for a little bit like we had almost unlimited funds. And we were able to get 30 individual students. We did have some students who were able to take 2 courses through Credit Connect. So that's where that, duplicated number comes from, but 30 unduplicated students in Credit Connect to them. In 2020, part of this was cut short as we didn't have students complete it when we had to transition online, but we also lacked funds in 2020 because we did not receive that IBT grant, and we were still figuring out how to set this up on an institutional basis. So we had a limited number of funds there. So it dropped down to 7. And then for Credit Connect this past year, we had unduplicated, we had 9 students who went through the program that way. And then you can also see ICAP's numbers on there as well. These again for FY21, 20, and 19. I want to jump to the last part, which is just any questions that you have. So I'd encourage people to unmute right now, and we can have a discussion about this and kind of talk about what challenges and successes we may have had the adaptability of a program like this. I have some challenges that I'll share with you, but I'd love to hear any questions that people have. Oh, there's a question in the chat. Do you work with WIO, a partner for funding tuition? We do not at the moment use WIO dollars for this. We use institutional dollars to help fund the tuition, but that is certainly something we would explore.
Michael, this is Elena from Oakton College.
Hi, Elena.
Hi. I had to take a phone call in the middle of your presentation, so I don't know if I missed this, but okay. I am wondering, while the students are both in the ICAPS and in a GED class, how many hours of each per week do they take? How many hours a week is the GED class? How many hours are they busy with the IET class? Just trying to imagine their day.
Yeah, generally, if they're in Credit Connect, they're going to take 1 course, and that course is usually 3 credits. So,
over 16 weeks, that's 3 hours a week.
Exactly. Okay. And then the adult ed section or side of this would be our adult ed classes run in 6 hours a week. So, Tuesday, Thursday from 6 to 9, and then Monday, Wednesday from 6 to 9, or 8:30 to 11:30. So it could be about, a total of 9 hours in school if they take just 1 adult ed course, which generally somebody taking Credit Connect is just going to take 1 adult ed course. They won't take both math and language arts, they'll take one or the
Mhm.
other. And usually that's because we've tried to identify students who are at the end of their language arts. Math is the most common pairing here. So generally we'll have students who are taking a math course and a Credit Connect course.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Michael, it's Michelle with Joliet Junior College.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, I have a question about your early childhood ICAPS. Was that something that was high growth in demand with your WIOA partner to get it approved through ICCB?
Yeah, so that we approved, or we put through in a grant, and actually I need to get back to Angela about this. I can't answer that right now because I don't remember how it was put through. But I know that that's a sticking point in a difficult area. So what, I think the way that we kind of describe it to students and try to, encourage students to go further than that aid certificate and really dive into the assistant and then further into the instructor. So because it's a difficult one and one that we're still looking at how to frame that.
We're in the same boat, the exact same boat. And so I would really love, like, maybe even after the forum, just to connect by
Definitely.
email and
That sounds
see.
great.
Thank you.
I would appreciate any help on that as well. So we can maybe work that out together. Anybody else have any questions? I'll talk just a little bit about some of the challenges of this, and then I'll wrap up here and give you back some of your time. One of the biggest challenges that we had with students, we talked about kind of the accountability portion of this and encouraging students to be the ones purchasing their books and the seriousness of taking a college credit course where it lives in their academic history. This is going to be on their college transcript, and so it's important that they recognize that. Blackboard was kind of the biggest barrier for a lot of students because we weren't using Blackboard until the pandemic in adult ed. So that was a huge hurdle that we had to climb. Students had to learn that system, and we had to really help them get accustomed to it. Because a lot of content lives on Blackboard. And, most of our students have been out of school for quite a while and weren't really familiar with that type of learning management system portal that a typical student coming from high school might use as well. And then one of the biggest, successes that we've had is in the healthcare bridge area. And she's here today. I want to give Jennifer Schreier a ton of credit for this. Jennifer came in and really took over our healthcare bridge. And those students are the students that really access Credit Connect the most. Through that, they've been able to complete, we've had a number of students complete an medical office support certificate, something that they can use to work as they apply for the nursing program or the PTA program. We have students who are in Jennifer's bridge courses that are in the PTA program right now, students who are in the nursing program right now, and we're able to get a couple of those prereqs done using Credit Connect. So that's really been, I think, where the biggest success is. And then also a student taking Credit Connect, a college credit course while they're doing their adult ed, and then successfully passing it is a huge indicator of whether or not they're going to pass their GED. Almost 90% of the students in total have passed on and gotten their GED and then gone into college. And it really, I think that number is almost at 100% if you just look at the last couple of years. So those have been a couple things that have been really great. There's a few more questions coming in. We had a module on using Canvas or LMS like Blackboard in the bridge to ICAPS. That's a great idea, is building that in there. And I do know we are using Blackboard in those bridge courses now, and that's really helped to get students familiar with it. Do you guys have your students set up with school emails at the beginning? Yes, now we do. We did not before, and that was again another really big barrier for students. But now they are using or have access to. I don't know how many of them check it all that often. That's, I guess, another story. But yes, they do have access to and should be using on a regular basis their Wharton College email address. Any other questions? I want to share with you my contact information. Please feel free to reach out to me. Just one shameless plug, and I'm going to put it in the chat. We are looking for a grant and compliance director here at the College for Adult and CTE. So if you know anybody that you think would be good in that role, please feel free, and I put a couple of those job postings in there. Please feel free to share that job posting, because we are desperately in search of a new grants and compliance director who can help us in our department. And then I'd also just really like to thank Claudia Mosqueda is on here. She's the other associate dean. She's been instrumental in making this successful, as has Jennifer Schreier, who is also on here and has really been a huge support, along with Juan Rivera, who's our transition specialist and works tirelessly to help these students. So big thank you to all of those people, as well as Kirsten and Martha, who were helping me out with the technical side of this today. Again, my name's Michael Rose, and thank you so much.